for all of you who are not watching this on YouTube, get on YouTube right now.
Click the link below.
Click that link because Michelle, she has had some really impressive costumes over the last few seasons of us doing this podcast, and I jumped back when I turned on my camera today. She is in full Janice. I went only as far to wear a pink sweater and I painted my nails pink, but it is not Wednesday when we're recording this, so I may get kicked out of the plastics. This is our 4th episode of the season. It's our 2nd Lindsay Lohan release of this season, back to back. So if you haven't listened to Freaky Friday, I'm sure we're going to be talking a little bit about the comparison of both those movies. Go back and listen. Great episode. What did we think about Mean Girls this time around?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it before, but now I'm questioning it. If it's just one of those, it's such a part of the culture that maybe I thought I had seen it, but maybe I hadn't. I don't know. I think I've seen it, but I did not retain any of it. And I have no memory of when I watched it the first time. So it felt like a really fresh, almost like an introductory experience for me. And I feel like medium. I liked it, but I have a feeling that it's the kind of movie that I would probably like more if it was something that we quoted a lot. And maybe I don't know, do you quote this with Lisa or with our cousins?
I think more with everyone, but I have felt recently that it's almost too overdone now because it's so used, and sometimes it can be a little bit corny, but it still definitely holds up. It's always going to be a movie that you can, I think, especially I'm sure we'll get into Damien quotes, but I think his sense of humor is totally my humor. So I think there's things that I'm always going to quote with friends and probably more so cousins. I feel like this isn't as much of a movie that I remember quoting a lot with Lisa. I know it came out amidst all these other films that we're reviewing this season, but I think it's one of those movies that I would reference a lot when I was in college. So I think it continued to gain traction as it aged.
Yeah, I'm also curious, kind of coming from your perspective, that this movie came out before you were in high school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't have any memories of seeing it for the first time. I think that's been a common thread with this season so far. But I do think because it falls in that category of just movies that were a comfort watch, and then moving into present day, it's just the memes that you always see, people turning it into content. I mean, this movie really does have so many good meme potential. But I think for you, what was your relationship growing up with Amy Poehler and Tina Fey?
So they were, I think, on SNL, maybe just starting on SNL when I was in late high school. I might be a little bit off on that, but I feel like I kind of knew them from that, but I never really watched the show religiously. I probably more from watching clips. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought them up because I kind of wanted to have a discussion about Tina Fey's humor, Tina and Amy, because when this movie started immediately, and I knew that Tina Fey had written it, I knew that she was in it, and as soon as she came in that first scene where she has the coffee and the donuts, which I'm going to bring up again in the food section, I was like, I love her so much. However, I was thinking about the things that I feel like I know the best that she's been involved with: 30 Rock, Kimmy Schmidt, and I love the specificity of a lot of her jokes. Yet, everything that she's been involved in, I've kind of lost interest in. I really only watch maybe the first full season of 30 Rock and the first 2 seasons of Kimmy Schmidt. I don't know what it is. I love her, but I end up losing interest a little bit. And that's exactly how I felt watching this movie. I went into it feeling excited, And it's almost like I almost have a bias. Like I've decided that I'm gonna like it just because Tina Fey is involved. And I'm like, this joke is funny, this is great. Like, yes, this is why I love her so much. And then somewhere along the line I just kind of like become disinterested.
I see it as she is such an incredible writer, and she is a type of actress that in any movies she's in or show, she doesn't take up all of the air in the room. Like, she's very complimentary. She allows other stars to shine while she kind of takes the back seat, but without her, there would be no opportunity for the her scene partners to be as well as they are, because she's very much like the foundation and I think the brains behind it. I think in recent years, when I've gone back and watched this movie, I don't really find myself like laughing as much in a lot of scenes as maybe I did when I was younger. But I also think that's because I've become so used to it. I never really thought of this as like the Tina Fey movie. I thought of it more as like she is the anchor. She's obviously the reason it exists, but she again like kind of creates this stage for Lindsay Lohan and a lot of the other supporting actors to be really like the centerfold of the movie. And I think that's what you're saying. It probably doesn't, it's not as like concrete or doesn't feel strong enough for you because Tina Fey is the draw, but she's not really the whole movie. Like, this is very much, in my mind, I think this is very much a Rachel McAdams movie.
I kind of want to talk more about this and like what do we love. But I have to think that she was writing this from a place of not that she like experienced something like this, but do you which character do you think that she most identified with? Like do you think
Definitely,
it was
definitely
Katie?
Katie.
Okay.
I really feel like, as much as it's a comedy, like, it is a really sad story. I think about high school and what people experience, especially we were, fortunate enough that we never had to like move schools, but really in adult life too, like going into completely new groups of people and like trying to fit in and like being in environments that you haven't been before. And it felt very personal. I would say like the loneliness and the feelings that Katie was feeling and like who she kind of morphed into. I don't know. I think it felt like, how could she have written that character to a T without personally experiencing something to that extent?
Okay. Is it too soon to jump right into like what do we love?
Sure. Let's
Okay,
do it.
because I want to kind of like keep talking
Yeah.
about this a little bit. The concept of Katie's character is really interesting to me because if we're kind of going in with this notion that like Tina saw herself as she was writing this like as Katie, it's kind of almost like a fantasy exercise of like kind of being a little bit of this outsider, like looking at the popular group and conceiving the story of like what would happen if I became one of them, and like is that even would that even be possible? So that just I love that as a concept, but I'm also going to make the argument that Janice and Damien were also maybe how she was looking at it maybe from like a outsider perspective. Maybe she didn't like see herself in those characters specifically. And the reason I'm saying that is in the movie, the two of them are kind of the audience, kind of like looking in and like observing everything. Like they're the ones who are kind of telling her like this is how everything works in this high school. They're kind of like educating Katie. And the only more recent, I guess, experience I have with this story, I've not watched the new version of the movie, which is a musical, but I guess during,
Boo.
okay, but
Very strong face.
during like the last couple of years, songs from the musical, like the stage musical, have like popped into my shuffle because longtime listeners will know it's Michelle's Broadway segment. The couple songs that kind of like keep playing a lot, probably because like I liked them and then kept listening to them, are like Janice and Damien songs. And the song that kind of like opens the show is almost a narration. And from what I understand, Tina was also involved in creating the musical. So I have to almost think that like they are her as the writer, and
Hmm.
Katie is kind of like her as the, if you're going to put yourself in the story.
No, I think that's totally fair. And I think that's where her humor really shines, is in those two characters. I mean, they are absolutely amazing and great scene partners, like all three of them together. That first scene where they go behind the gym and they're like sitting in that circle, like you feel like you're sitting in the grass, like having a conversation with them. And like everyone's had that feeling of like, oh, do I really want to be in this situation? But like, I'm kind of desperate to want to fit in with this group. They made you feel like very like at home, but also in a way they kind of made her do things that she necessarily didn't want to do. So it's a very like influential, it speaks volumes to the concept of being in high school, being in new situations, and like just doing things that maybe you necessarily aren't making decisions on your own for.
I love Janice and Damien's characters so much. They felt like the anchors of this movie. And I think part of that is like that realism that they were not, they had their own flaws. Like the whole movie, they are, against the plastics and talking about mean girls, but like they're mean too.
Yeah.
Everyone in high school, whether it's conscious or subconscious, or whether it's like a reaction to how other people are treating them, I think that's kind of, I kind of took part of the message away from the movie is like everyone in high school is kind of mean to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I really felt that. This is coming off of a couple episodes ago during our Princess Diaries release, when you pose the question, who is an actress that like automatically makes you want to see a movie? Rachel McAdams is definitely one of those people for me. I think that she just really like carries her own, like she could be completely in a scene by herself and I would be locked in. And I think whenever I've watched this movie growing up, I very much have just always seen like Regina George. Like I almost forget that it's Rachel McAdams. And watching it this time around, I was like, my God, she really is so mean in this movie. Like, she is an absolutely horrible person. And I don't think anyone can play that role where you are like intimidated by her. There are certain scenes where her physical acting, when she decides to basically blow up like the entire situation and starts and like goes to the principal about the burn book, as her and Lindsay Lohan are passing each other in the school office, she just has like this face of rage, of like complete rage. And it's like in her eyes and her nostrils. And I can't really think of someone to that level that I grew up going to high school with, luckily, but I do feel like everyone can probably think of an example of someone in their life who's like, they were just not straight up a horrible, not a good person, not kind. With Regina George, they did not give her really any redeeming moments in this movie, which I kind of loved because usually there's that like, come to Jesus moment where they're like, oh, I'm really going through this. But even when she like recovers by the end of the movie, like you're still not forgetting about all the horrible things that she has done.
I felt like I spent the whole movie saying like, I cannot believe that this is Rachel McAdams, because I agree with you. I love her. She's done so many different things, but like this character is like so awful that I think part of why I like Rachel McAdams, and some of, if you want to hear mine and Laura's list of actresses that we would see just because they're in it, you can listen to it in the Princess Diaries episode. But I think part of what we both love about Rachel McAdams is she's so like relatable. She doesn't seem like above anyone, which is like the complete opposite of this character.
Yeah.
So just bravo to her for doing an incredible job playing this role. And it's also like mind blowing to think of like this was like one of the first big things that she did,
Mhm.
like where she went after this, I think I would have a hard time watching this and then like casting her as like a different, like as like a sweet character, which I feel like she mostly played in
Yeah.
the movies that came out like right after this.
Yeah. I think most movies I've seen her in, she's pretty docile and or is in very like serious roles, but is usually a very like grounded and good-hearted character.
Hmm.
And I don't know if there's a major one that I'm not thinking of, but listeners, please correct us. But yeah, she really just transforms into a mean girl. She really does. I think that she wins this movie. I really do.
I have another contender though.
Please.
Um,
There could be two.
so this is, as we already said, our second Lindsay Lohan movie in this series. We've also covered The Parent Trap in our first season. I think this is her best movie of
Yeah.
of the ones that I've seen, which I think have probably only been these three, and then Life Size. I haven't seen like her Christmas movie or I don't know
Yeah.
any other movies that came out like in between. But yeah, she was really good. This is like a great part, but it's interesting that like in Freaky Friday, you would think I would be able to say like she got to kind of like play this range of like playing kind of these two different characters. I don't know if it was her or it was just because Jamie Lee Curtis just completely stole that movie. But in this, I see much more of like what she can do as an actress, like the range, the transformation, which is like, a little bit of her, a little bit of Tina Fey's writing. But I thought that the very like slow and subtle transformation was done really well. And maybe that's just me coming at this like not having seen it a million times, but I was kind of like I was engaged with that story, part of the story.
Oh, absolutely. I can't agree more. I mean, and I do think that that's why this movie is so great though, because if Rachel McAdams was cast as someone else and Regina George was kind of a flop role, I think that the two of them really need to like shine together in order for this movie to work. And I think that Lindsay Lohan's physical acting in this movie is absolutely amazing. Like just her facial expressions, the way that she's really able to like you're able to feel her embarrassment, you're able to like feel her sadness and then you're able to hate her when she becomes one of them. And I think that to your point is being able to like tap into range for a character. One of the scenes that always breaks my heart every time, not that I cry, but I just is when she eats lunch in the in the bathroom stall, like in the opening of the movie, and then she does it again at the end. And you just like just the look on her face, you're like, oh, you really believe that she's absolutely devastated right now in that moment. So I think there's a lot of moments throughout that movie that she kind of it really was like a graduation from coming off of Freaky Friday because she's getting older, she's like in this, it's a completely different role in a way, but she's really able to show us like what she's got.
Yeah, and I think if I had like read a description of what was going to happen to her character in this movie, I'd be like, okay. I found myself saying like this isn't really going to happen, and then like watching it happening and just being like really, I felt like she made it relatable and believable, and I don't think that like every actress could have pulled that off.
Can we talk a little bit about the like fashion and the just transformation that they had for her also? Because my only contribution to getting into character again was wearing pink for this. But like when she wears that pink polo, which is like completely oversized, which just becomes like a very, it's a meme that's used over and over again. Like, I want my pink shirt back. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. So it's very much woven into like the fabric. But like, I so much connected to that like decision because I feel like sometimes if I've needed to like dress up for theme parties or like things and I don't have something like I like felt the embarrassment of her needing to wear that oversized pink polo, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I think that they did like a really great job of this. She starts off in like basically just plain t-shirts, and then she full on is dressing like the plastics, by the maybe winter or spring chapters of the movie.
Yeah, I loved how her costumes, her look, her hair, it
Her
was it
makeup.
it was so subtle that like I had to almost I'm like, wait, did I miss it was done so subtly. And I feel like almost like an idiot, like how much I was like in awe of like not seeing it happening as it was happening.
Yeah. And I do feel like that's probably relatable even for girls today growing up in high school, especially where everything is so driven by makeup tutorials and like fashion, and like people so quickly transform in high school between freshman and junior year, especially. You really like transform your style and you're trying to figure out what you should wear. Like I remember being in high school and like begging mom to like give me money so that I could go to like Hollister and Abercrombie and wear all. I mean, that was more so even like middle school, but then going into high school, like, just really wanting to like fit in and dress like all the other girls in school because, and that still holds up even into adulthood. You want to be
Yeah.
caught up with all of the trends.
Can we talk about the other plastics? And I mean, I think another thing that I just kept harping on as I was watching this was like, I cannot believe that all of these like huge actresses are all in this movie together, including like, so Lizzie Kaplan, who plays Janice. I think the only other thing that I really know her from is New Girl, and she was in like, she was just kind of
Hmm.
like in a guest role, but she was in Masters of Sex. Is that kind
Yep.
of like her big thing that she was in? Did you
Yeah,
watch
she's
that?
been. I watched a couple episodes and she was great. I mean, she's another one that like she went from this role into these very like serious, intense, very different roles from this. But she is such a strong. I think her character, you would think if on paper it would be maybe a little bit over the top or like cartoonish, and
And
she
it
does
is in
not.
a way, but
It is, but I think that her execution doesn't make it feel that way.
she brings depth to it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But and now seeing this movie and now thinking about her character in New Girl, it almost makes me like I could see Janice like growing into that character. So now I want to go
Yeah,
back and kind of like watch it through that
yeah.
lens. But we also have to talk about the other plastics because I feel like in any other movie, if it was like just them, I'd be like, they're fantastic. Like they stole the movie. But like there's so much good acting happening that I almost feel bad that they got overshadowed. But Lacey Chabert, who plays Gretchen, I thought that she was really good. And I don't understand how she kind of ended up because she was, I think, before this movie came out, maybe the one who came into this. I don't know if like, considered to be the biggest star, but she was on Party of Five for like a really long time. I know that show was kind of like before you, almost a little bit before me too. I never
Hmm.
watched it, but
Yeah, I
kind
haven't
of
seen it.
coming off of that stardom. So it makes me sad that like her career after this, she kind of, I mean, unless maybe it was her choice and she loves it, like it seems like she's pretty much doing like exclusively like Hallmark movies at this point
Yeah.
and has done like a bunch of them. And then Amanda Seyfried, also like so good, really fun in this movie. But yeah, I just kept saying like, I'm like, she's a huge star now. And like she has
Uh,
this kind of like little secondary part in this.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like none of them really, like all of them went on to play like much more like serious roles. But yeah, I actually don't think that they're overshadowed necessarily. I do like, again, when I think of this movie, I very much like think of like the meanness of Regina George's character, but I think that they all get a ton of screen time, and a lot of like the quotes that are said are really from the two of them, and there would be no Regina George and no plastics without the two of them. I mean, you need them for the comedic relief.
All right, what else? Do you have like micro things that you loved, or do you have other big picture things that you loved?
I think this is just a really tight movie, but it's also, I think, just a very like original release. There's so many movies that take place in high school, but the scenarios that they think of, the way, I don't always love when they're like interviewing people and trying to give us background of like, oh, you got the jocks and this, and then they like interview people about Regina George. But I think that those are actually really funny and they kind of like paint a deeper picture of really what it's like to be in this environment instead of like being very expository and taking things away. And all of the other supporting characters, like from Mr. Duval to, the office assistant to, we didn't really give any sort of praise to Amy Poehler, but she is absolutely ridiculous in this movie and is I wanted like her and Tina Fey to have some type of interaction because I love the two of them together. But I think that's like a common theme in a lot of these movies that we choose to cover is that it's like the main characters, obviously, we need them, but the supporting, roles, like, we've talked about Damien a little bit, but so many of these characters are really what make the movie so funny and make the scenes really strong.
Amy Poehler's character, probably when I thought of this movie, just I'm a cool mom is probably the thing that I feel like I've heard the most that has come out of like Mean Girls into our culture. So I very much remembered that, like, the introduction of her character, but every time that she showed up, I was just cracking up. When they're doing the Christmas talent show performance, she's like kind of like doing the moves in the aisle. I like
Yeah.
loved that so
That is
much.
like a meme that's used so much of people. Well, people always compare like that to the Chris Kardashian, like, you're doing great, sweetie, or you're doing amazing, sweetie. But yeah, I feel like the entire character of Mrs. George is just probably one of Amy Poehler's like dream SNL characters that she could have thought of. Everything, like happy hours from 4 to 6. I love saying that. Every scene that she's in, I'm like, I just want to stay here for a little bit longer.
I don't know why this popped into my head. I guess just thinking about Tina Fey's people, like if you Google Tina Fey and you see kind of like the people that pop up that are like attached to her, associated with her, obviously Amy's gonna be up there. But in my mind, trying to picture Jane Krakowski playing Mrs. George, and I think she would have done it in like a very different way. But
Yeah.
I think that she also, not to like take that away from Amy Poehler because she obviously nailed it,
Yeah.
but I would have loved to have seen a version with Jane playing her.
Yeah. I mean, I think for Amy Poehler, she just has like a very, I don't know, like she just has this like uniqueness, the way that she comes on screen with her comedy and just like, again, she's another like physical actor, but I agree. Like, I would have loved to see Jane in that role as well. It would have been like more on the nose for her, where, we
Mm-hmm.
do see Amy Poehler in different types of roles where she's not always this like bubbly thing. And I think that's what makes it funny, is because we kind of like know the other Amy Poehler. Like, she very, and all the scenes that she's in, she very much like pops in and out. So like even when Regina and Shane are like having sex and she just like comes in, she's like, hey, you want a snack or a condom? Or, she brings in the tray. She's at the, we only get these like glimpses of her. And I think that's what makes it very the fabric of like SNL humor.
This is making me like the movie more. It wasn't
No,
all in on it.
listen, I mean, this is always going to be just like an amazing movie, but I definitely don't think of this movie as like a movie that I turn to when I need comedic relief. I'm definitely not like dying laughing, but I think, when when you think of comedy and you're like, that is smart comedy versus like, and I think that's Tina Fey. Like, she is a really intelligent person and she's an amazing writer, and she's able to bring that to life through amazing artists. So I don't think it's like a movie in my mind, like a comfort movie like Step Brothers, which is just so stupid, absolutely stupid humor. But it's also, that's a different type of like intelligent comedy. But I think this is more like very well crafted in a very Tina Fey tone. Have you seen Baby Mama with her and
I I've definitely seen it before, but I really want to watch it again. This is very timely because I love Armchair Expert, the podcast that Dak Shepard hosts. And right before we started recording this Amy Poehler's episode, she was on like for a second time today. So I just like listened to like 2 hours of the two of them
Yeah.
talking. And now I'm like dying to go back and watch Baby Mama.
My gosh, Baby Mama. For anyone who's listening and you've not seen that movie, I don't know if I'm biased just because like my college friends and I used to die laughing over it, but I think it's a very underrated movie. The two of them are Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, absolutely amazing together. It's a ridiculous story, but I think that the writing is so intelligent and just I mean, Amy Poehler definitely steals the show in that movie, but you can tell that like Tina is a lot of the brains behind it.
On that note, I have a couple like small things that I really loved that I think
Please.
are all kind of like things that are like Tina Fey humor. Starting with I love that Janice's character worked at a fake version of the Body Shop.
Yes.
It's so on brand that it's like there's no way that like she uses those products, but it's so on point with when you're in high school, you just end up with these jobs that like have nothing to do with like who you are or what you're good at. Like you just try to find like a job, and it was making me think of in Gilmore Girls how like Jess works at Walmart. I don't know. I love pairings of people who do not belong in a certain setting having to be there.
Yeah. I also think it just brings back the nostalgia of like the late 90s, early 2000s when everyone was like obsessed with going to the mall after school. And that was like so on point of get in loser, we're going shopping. Like you just get together with your friends, you have nothing after school, you're getting a Starbucks and walking around. And the Body Shop, I love that was like it was like an elevated Bath and Body Works.
Yeah, like it was really more for like moms.
Moms,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, this movie really made me miss malls. I feel like we've been talking about malls a lot in, I guess, since we started this podcast. And
We think
I don't,
malls are gonna have a comeback.
you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that we are going to be part of the movement that brings malls back.
I think so because a lot of these brands that have also started online all end up opening up storefronts because people like want the physicality of it. I don't miss malls too much because I just think of them as empty now, but I miss
You have to
like
think of like an
the
old, like a,
90s version of like going to get an Annie Ann's pretzel and like
yeah,
going to Claire's to get jewelry.
I loved
Jewelry, not
Claire's.
just junk. They had some great stuff.
Keychains.
Keychains, they had it all. We want to hear what your favorite mall stores and memories are growing up.
Yeah, text us your favorite store in the
Yeah.
mall below. We have our
Yes.
new text and number. You can call us if you want, but we prefer if you just text us.
Yeah. One other thing that I really loved was the way that they broke up the movie of giving us an entire school year. Because if you told me that on paper, it would feel like they're squeezing too much in, but like the Halloween party is amazing. That's so smart. Like that's such smart writing because in if I was thinking of that, I would have just been like, "Oh yeah, she just like dresses up like everyone else and, she gets her heart broken." But they went as far to, creating such a ridiculous costume leading into the talent show and giving us around like Christmas time and then like ending at the spring fling and then starting the year all over again. I thought that was really subtle. I think similarly to what you were saying about how Lindsay has this amazing transformation, like they did that without being so in your face about it. It felt like it flowed really nicely. I know we talked a little bit about the fashion, and obviously, I'm sure we're going to get a little bit more into specific comedic moments that we loved in this movie, but I have to give a shout out to the Missy Elliott needle drop that they had, which is kind of Lindsay Lohan's big transformation moment where they're walking down the hall and she ends up like falling into the trash can, and they kind of like flip the script where they everyone is like talking about how Katie Heron is like, the new it girl, and like saying all the quote unquote rumors about her. But they're just playing Pass the Dutch in the background. And like she looks over at Regina George and Aaron Samuels and like falls into the trash bin. It's just such a great moment. But the song choice was just like perfectly placed in there.
I need to revisit this. I don't know, like I
Please.
remember the scene, but I don't remember the music.
It's so great.
So yeah, I'll go back, but thanks for
Please.
setting the scene.
Yeah.
My last thing under things that I loved, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I think just kind of like the message of the movie, I think was great. There were a couple parts where I felt like it was starting to get a little bit too explaining, like too preachy, but I thought that the whole thing with like breaking the crown and like handing it out was like very sweet. And what we will get into in the like what do we hate section, things that I think haven't aged great, they kind of made up for, I think, a little bit in that scene. I felt like they did a decent job with like trying to be inclusive. Like I feel like this is like the very beginnings of like trying to be inclusive. They didn't nail it. It's not perfect, but like Tina was like trying. Yeah, so I'm curious if you're going to talk more about this and things that we hated, because you seem to have a very strong reaction to the movie that just came out this year, the musical version of the movie. But just, I mean, it made me happy just to at least look like the casting was more diverse, which I feel like it's like
Yeah.
so easy to do in like a high school movie. Like there's really no,
Well,
you know,
I actually, so I have not watched the whole thing through. I actually was lucky enough that they had Mean Girls on I'm in Cape Cod right now, and on my
PS.
flight they had it. As you can tell by my background, they had Mean Girls, and they also had Mean Girls 2. So I was like, all right, let me just, after I watch Mean Girls 1, I'll turn it on, I'll see what the deal is. And it's just not for me. It has nothing to do. I think that the casting actually seemed great, especially like their choices for Damien and Janice's character. Like I actually enjoyed the snippets that I got of them, but all in all, just not my kind of movie. I'm
And it
very
wasn't
sure
Mean Girls 2, right? It was the like the
it
new
was the
the remake.
musical, whatever you want
Okay.
to call it. Yeah,
There is
but
also a second Mean Girls, which is confusing, right?
yeah,
Like
which
there's like a
I don't think that
sequel.
I've seen. I don't think anyone's seen that movie,
It doesn't
but
exist.
I'm very strange in the way that I like musicals, but for some reason there's certain formats that I can't even get through when it's like too sing-songy, which I mean the theater fans are gonna eat me alive right now, but it just I couldn't even get through the like opening.
Hmm. Okay.
So
I'll have to give it a whirl. What do we hate about this movie?
yeah, I don't really have anything massive besides I think just like this is definitely not one of like my favorite movies of all time. I think it's more so I enjoy it. It's good. It's like a good consistent watch. There's really funny aspects of it. I love the characters. I love their originality, but it's not like the greatest movie of all time for me.
I don't feel like I we need to like talk at length about this, but I felt like specifically the storyline with Katie trying to get Regina like to gain weight by like eating those like the bars or whatever. It's just as we say every time this comes up in movies that we've reviewed, like we can do better and like let's keep doing better.
But I actually don't know if that was necessarily condoning it versus like bringing light to the fact that that is such a common struggle that women experience in high school. And this is speaking from someone who, was not directly going through any eating disorders. And to anyone listening, obviously we want to be respectful of your journey and your stories. But I kind of took it as more of trying to bring light that this is such like a common thing in high school versus being like women should lose weight and this is how they should look or
Mm.
doing it. That's how I took it.
Yeah, I think that that's a much more thoughtful response to that. I think I was looking at it too much on like the surface level.
I think because when I place myself in a setting of a movie that takes place in high school, it's like, how do you create a story that's very realistic and
Mm-hmm.
things that people, high schoolers, are experiencing, but do it in a way that's not encouraging it? So if you're showing it on screen, you kind of need to have a message behind it. I don't know. I think that they did it, and maybe, if they took that out of the movie, I don't think that it would be taking away a lot, but I don't know. I'm kind of curious about what her thought process was there.
If I may admit, I think that I am, as I've gotten older, like trying to like compensate for like, not that I ever did anything like, that mean, but I think when we were growing up, this is what we were shown in movies and TV, like that, like it's like fat jokes are funny. And like now looking at it, I'm like, how did any of us ever think that that's like funny? I know me and you talk about
Yeah.
this a lot. Like it's just
Yeah.
like from a writing perspective, it's such like a cheap way out of like trying to make
Yeah.
a joke that's like really not even funny. It's hard to go back and watch these and to not only like see it through like a 2024 lens, but to know that like, no, I like laughed at these jokes too because
Hmm.
I, I was told it was okay, but like I'm like beating myself. I'm like, how did I ever think that that was okay, even if everyone else was doing it?
Yeah.
I like to think
Yeah.
that like I would have done better. So that's why I keep saying
Yeah.
like, let's keep doing better.
Yeah. Agree. Agree.
Okay, other minor things that I didn't love. They only did this a couple times, which kind of makes me think that like maybe they weren't all in on it. The kind of like animal recreations that was happening in Katie's head and trying to kind of like connect, human nature to like animal nature, which I think is a real thing, but just I don't know, that part, those little scenes just kind of like fell flat for me.
Yeah, I think that it just felt very out of place in the movie and the tone. Like it was, to your point, trying to make a point, but I don't think it really added anything to the movie. Maybe it was just like someone whining to get creative. I probably could have done without them.
I don't feel like this completely has to go under things we hate. More just a commentary that I thought that Aaron Samuel's character was completely forgettable.
Yeah, that's kind of common in a lot of these early 2000s. These are ladies films, It's more about the leading ladies, which I love. Kind of similarly to what we were talking about in our last release. Thought Chad Michael Murray's character, Freaky Friday, is kind of
Yeah.
forgettable as well. Jonathan Bennett is, I'm sure he's a great human, but I think, he doesn't really have like a very memorable role in this movie.
I think maybe at the end of this podcast series, we'll have to rank all the guys in all of these, how
Yeah.
many, 6, 7 movies?
I actually never really think it's about the actor. I think it's more so about the character.
Yeah. But I still have like, I have one immediately that's like jumping out to me as like who I would put as my favorite. But I think knowing what's coming up, there's probably going to be another one that bumps him out.
Wow. Are you going to give a sneak peek or are you going to save it?
Well, I can give you a sneak peek that from my memory, I really like the love interest in the next movie that we're doing. So if you're listening to these after they've all been released and you look ahead to the next episode, that's where I think that I will pan out. But I don't know. There's also a couple movies that at the end of the series that I've never seen before, so
Yeah.
there could be
Okay.
a surprise.
But yeah, I think that he is necessary though in the plot because without Aaron Samuels, there's no real blow up fight. Sure, they
Yeah.
could have thought of something else, but I think that it makes the stakes a lot higher.
Also, like you can't have a high school movie without
No,
like some kind of love interest, and especially when it comes to like girls fighting, like that's going to be a central conflict.
definitely.
All right, should we move into favorite quotes and favorite scenes?
Sure. Do you want to go first?
I think the less I know the movie, the more succinct I can be in my answers because I'm not picking based on like, just things that we like quote and repeat all the time. So I have this narrowed down to like one quote and one scene. One quote, I wish that I could have picked something that wasn't a meme or something that was repeated, but I thought that the like she doesn't even go here line just made me laugh out loud. Including like what preceded it, what prompted him to say that, the dramatic little monologue that that girl gave.
I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles and we'd all eat it, be happy.
She doesn't even go here.
Do you even go to this school?
No, I just have a lot of feelings.
What I love most is there are things that happen in high school that do kind of like really like unite kids. Like I was thinking about anytime anyone gets called to like the office or the principal's office, everyone would always just go like,
Oh.
ooh. There are so many things in, in high school and middle school that separate us and put us into these silos. But then there are these moments that like really unite us where we're kind of like all coming from the same perspective. And I felt like that line kind of embodied that.
Oh, such a good point. Yeah, I feel like we didn't really get too much into this in our other sections, but there are so many. Truly, the entire sex education class is spot on. Like, it's could not be more accurate to everyone's, at least my experience. Maybe we weren't sitting in the gym, but we were like in the level below the gym, having that exact interaction. They do a good job of like making this high school environment very cartoonish, but completely playing on the ridiculousness of some of these classes that we had.
Yes. All right. And favorite scene. I came in here not having one, but when you mentioned something like, oh, no, that scene was really good. And maybe this is like two scenes or two kind of sequences back to back. But I think everything from the moment where Regina cuts out the photo and that was a true, when she stuck that in the book, I was like, I was truly shocked by it. I felt like that was like such a twist. But I think the scene that was my favorite was when she's going through the halls with the printouts and putting them on the lockers and like sticking them up on the walls. A mean thing to be said about like every person in their high school, which feels maybe a little unrealistic because I feel like there are people like me and you who I think would be classified as like maybe like she doesn't even go here, like probably people wouldn't even like think of us. That moment of her just like throwing them all up in the air, like I love the drama of that. I like to think that whoever saw that was the person that said like we need to make this a musical.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's like where Rachel McAdams' physical comedy comes in, where she's like licking the paper and then she shoves it under the door and she's just watching all of it unfold. And it's just so evil.
It
It's
is,
so
but
good.
it's so like it's so good. It's so like
juicy.
it's
I'm
like a runaway train that everyone
Yeah.
wants to watch, and you're like, oh, she's really doing this, and like she commits to it. Like she doesn't just like screw over one person. She's like, everyone is going down with me.
Yes. And even like I love how long they make that scene that she's screaming from outside the party all the way until she gets back home. There's just like so much tension that they create. So good. It was a good pick.
Great scene. How about you? You seem like you were deliberating over there.
I have so many good lines. I would say for favorite scene though, I just love Damien so much, and I like one of the scenes. There's a couple of different bathroom scenes, but when him, Katie, and Janice are in the bathroom together, like right after she kind of like sits at their lunch table for the first time, they're like, "Oh my god, you have to hang out with her," and they're just kind of like coaching her on what people talk about. And I feel like one of the greatest interactions is she's like, what do they talk about? And they're like, hair products, Ashton Kutcher. She's like, is that a man? She's just so clueless. I just think that it's such a good dance. And, Damien goes up to the girl because he's like not supposed to be in the ladies' room. And she's like, hey, get out of here. And he's like,
Oh my God, Danny DeVito, I love your work!
But some of my favorite other lines, most of them are Damien lines. She says, like, Damien sat next to her in this class and he said, she asked me how to spell orange. And they're, she's saying, why do you hate Regina? And Damien goes,
She's fabulous, but she's evil.
I love Whatever, I'm getting cheese fries by Regina George. Fantastic. Lots of very smart but subtle quotes that I feel like you would appreciate. Janice is working at the body shop, as we call it, and she says, moderately priced soaps are my calling.
Yeah, that delivery was really good. Yeah.
So good. The Halloween sequence is so great. And again, you really like feel that. I feel like that's another just like very dramatic scene where she leaves and then she goes to their house and she opens the door and they're watching a movie and they scream because she looks so scary. But Shane Omen is like sitting outside of the party in like a gladiator costume and he goes, "That's a scary mask, bro." I have to include a Tina Fey line because she has a lot of just like very intelligent quotes, but she says like, you hear Katie's mind of like, "Oh, well, how would you know, right?" And then she responds back, "How would you know, right?" She goes, "I'm divorced. I'm broke from being divorced. The only guy that calls my house is Randy from Chase Visa."
I loved
So
that.
good. And the last one I'll leave you with is the execution of Gretchen's rage and how she starts freaking out about Julius Caesar. And she just like starts, they cut to like the scene with her and Katie in the bathroom. And she's like, "One year my parents gave me these beautiful silver hoops for Hanukkah." And she's like, "And I had to pretend like I didn't even like them." And it was so sad. I feel like I could relate to that. I make things so dramatic out of the tiniest things, but I feel like Gretchen like really leans into that scene and the rage really comes out.
Yeah, she definitely like overperforms probably more than anyone in this movie, and it works so well.
It works so well.
What did this movie make you want to eat?
I think I'm in like the summer spirit. Like I really want, or maybe I think it would be a little bit too sweet for me, but I do feel like I really want that mocktail that
that Amy made.
It looked really delicious. It had the little umbrellas. I had this thought this time around where she's like, "Oh no, there's no alcohol in this," and I'm like, I feel like she probably did spike those a little bit.
Yeah.
So good.
A cool mom would.
Honestly, so many of like their lunch with a bag of chips and like a soda, like cheese fries, like, oh my god, you were eating so terribly in high school. That was like the quintessential girl, just what people decide. They would just have like a bag of chips and like a Snapple. I feel like we talked about Snapple in one of our other episodes, which isn't featured here, but it made me want to have that. The mention of the fact that the girl made out with a hot dog, I'm like, I want a hot dog just because they're talking about it. What about you?
I mean, this was in like probably one of the first scenes, but when I saw Tina Fey's character come in with like the donuts and the coffee, I was like, I haven't had like a donut in like a long time. And I think Dunkin' Donuts donuts are really good.
Oh, they're so good. The last time I had a donut was like a vanilla frosted donut with sprinkles from Dunkin' Donuts, and it was so good.
Do you remember like in I feel like this is more of like a middle school thing. Like there would just be so many events where people would just like, you would show up to school at like 6:45 and like you would be eating donuts.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
There was usually, I feel like munchkins were more of the go-to, which were fine. But when someone committed, when that person commits with 2 boxes, like, they're a good person.
Yes.
I've never met someone who shows up with a box of donuts and I didn't like them.
You're right. More people should show up places with donuts, with boxes
Even
of like
just
full
like food, like picking up pastries, acts of kindness right there. We went away with our friends a couple weeks ago and we like stopped to get food on the way but it was like a pizza place, but they also had baked goods, and I was like, I'm gonna bring a bunch of croissants to this weekend getaway.
Of course,
because everyone's gonna like it, and they were good. They were a hit. No one was upset. So if you're listening to this and you're trying to brighten someone's day, just go buy some baked goods and show up with it.
Laura, if we were neighbors, I would bring you donuts tomorrow morning.
I mean, you have zucchini bread in the oven right now, and I wish that you were here so I could be eating it.
I know. Other things. Obviously, I wanted a baguette.
Obviously.
Always. We're big baguette
like just
fans.
biting into it.
Yeah, like a full one.
Yes.
They're watching a horror movie and they're eating popcorn. I think if I had to pick any genre of movie that like popcorn is like a necessary accompaniment, I think I would pick horror movie as like ranked number
Yeah.
one.
It's about the act. Because sometimes, like, I'll eat my popcorn so fast that I'm not really like. And sometimes when I'm watching a sad movie, I just want to kind of like be in my feelings and not have to like do anything. But when you're anticipating a big jump scare scene or just like a juicy plot moment, I'm eating that popcorn.
Yeah.
It's very much about the whole environment and the experience of watching a scared movie.
Yeah. So I almost wanted to both have popcorn and watch a horror movie, even though
And have a
it's not,
donut.
and have, well, obviously, always.
But that's a good thing about donuts. Like, they can be breakfast. They could
It could be a snack.
They're definitely a good baked item to bring at any time of day gathering.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very versatile food item.
It is.
To piggyback on what you were saying about just kind of like eating terrible food in the school cafeteria, I remember like really liking our high school cafeteria's French fries. I've never been a cheese fries girl. Like, just ketchup is fine and aioli if it's like truffle fries, but not that we were having that in high school. But yeah, it just made me want like one of those with the red and white painted on the side of
Yes.
it. The thing that it came in, and it was like really greasy. And I probably talked about this in past episodes, but when we were talking about the Snapples, but like those cookies that our high school made, I think it was like 90% oil and then maybe some sugar and chocolate chips, but they were so good. And those are my two like favorites to come out of
They
the
were always
cafeteria.
like in that saran wrap,
and it kind of smelled like it. Yeah.
Yes, I could like see you sitting at the plastic table with like a Snapple, those fries, and the cookie, and that was your lunch.
We often talk about like how we wish teleportation was a thing, but like also if time travel was a thing, in no world like want to go back and experience high school again, but I would love to like just like pop into like my 16-year-old self and just like have a Snapple, the greasy cookie in the plastic wrap, and the school cafeteria French fries, and just like not care.
Yes, because you're just not even like thinking about like this is not good for me.
I mean, it was an era where like the GMO, I like did not know, it didn't exist.
Yeah, all these terms were not a thing.
Yeah.
What should we do this week for our dinner party? I'm thinking we need to keep it in the high school cafeteria. I feel like both of us need to be at North Shore High's cafeteria because we spent a lot of time there. All right, I'll pick 2 people for you.
Okay.
And you pick 2 people for me.
Okay.
I'll keep it pretty easy. I'm gonna give you Katie's dad, who we have not talked about, which I do need to give a shout out because one of my favorite set of lines in this movie is when she goes to the mathletes competition and her mom's like, "Where's Katie?" And he goes, "Are they not allowed out when they're grounded?" So good. Just like quintessential aloof parent. And the other person I'm gonna give you is Mrs. George, because I just want more time with her. We've been going a little too outside of a little too niche.
Okay. Since we didn't talk about him nearly enough, I'm going to give you Mr. Duval, played by the great Tim Meadows, another shining star in this movie.
Absolutely amazing.
For your second character, I will give you, why don't I give you Shane Oman? Yeah, I'll give you Shane. Oh, actually, do you know what? No. Someone else who we didn't give nearly enough attention to, who is the main mathlete guy.
Oh, Kevin Napor?
Yes.
Oh, so great.
Yes.
We love Kevin.
How do we not bring him up yet?
I know. So good.
Okay.
All right.
So those are your 2.
I love this. Amazing. What are we doing here? Is everyone bringing their own item and they're all sharing at lunch? Or are we picking what we think that they would eat for their lunch? And they're all...
Oh, should we do this differently? Should we do all 4 of these people are online at the school cafeteria? What's going on their tray?
Love.
And then the 4 of them have to sit together?
Yes.
Okay.
This is great.
Okay.
This is a little... we've definitely hinted at this. It's not a secret, but we will be doing a back to school season at some point. This is a little bit of a teaser. Maybe we'll have to
Bring
keep
this back,
this,
this
bring
format.
this back, bring this format back for our food section. I really think that Mr. Duval is like a turkey sandwich guy. And I think that he eats it on white bread because everyone during this time is like trying to be healthy with whole wheat bread. And he's like, no, I love myself. Turkey sandwich, like he's friends with the lunch lady. She gives him like extra turkey. So it's one of those like thick cut sandwiches with like a little bit of cheese, no frills, no like tomato or anything, maybe just like a little bit of mayonnaise. And he has a thing where he like loves salt and vinegar potato chips, like the wise ones, because this was before they had like they didn't have all these like fun, brands that they do now that are fancy, like $10 chip brands. So I could see him like putting the wise potato chips like inside of the sandwich. And maybe this is just speaking from the fact that I do also love this type of sandwich. I think that he tries to keep it well rounded, that he would just get like a gala apple, not like a pink lady, not a honey crisp, just like I also feel like at most cafeterias they usually just had like one apple variety and it wasn't great. And I definitely think he's a Sprite guy. I don't know why.
Yes.
Like I feel like he's not really into Coke. And he likes getting it like from the vending machine. Like he has like he's very like methodical. He says, I'm gonna go to the cafeteria during this time. I'm gonna go to my favorite lunch lady. She's gonna stack up, the turkey for me. I'm gonna go to the soda machine, and then I'm gonna go to the teacher's lounge, and on a rare day I'm gonna go and sit with the students and interact with them. And I also think that after lunch he usually stops in the school store, which we have not brought up. Do you remember the high school store where they serve the warm cookies?
It was kind of like
the Otis Spunkermeyer ones.
Open for like very limited hours, right?
I don't even like remember if I had it. Like
you
they
would just
might
always
have,
smell
I
it in the
think
hall.
that they no, but I think that they like discontinued the school store. Lisa would be a good phone a friend for this, because I remember being in 8th grade and Lisa would always get the Otis Spunkermeyer. Lisa was like the worst. She went nuts in the school store and would always get these Otis Spunkermeyer cookies. But I think for some reason, I think he would go in and get himself like a pack of peanut M&Ms maybe. I wanted to say a Nerds Rope, but I don't think he's like that adventurous. I like to believe he has like kids at home and he would like buy them some snacks from the school store to bring them home. And he like brings it back to like get him through, his hellish day.
I am dying over the school store. I like forgot about the existence of the school store. I wonder if it was it in competition with the cafeteria and the vending machines?
It felt in competition, and it also felt like they had things in there that weren't just food. We need to console Lisa on this.
All I remember is this like
I remember
the
this
room
like room. It was
no
like,
windows.
No windows. And it was kind of like hidden. It almost like felt like a speakeasy.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
You know when you like walk in and if you make a right, you end up at the cafeteria? But it was like before you got there, it was very weird. And then I think they got rid of it. I think that I might have been like the last gen because they were like, this is so unhealthy with these cookies.
I think another phone a friend. I feel like my friend Katie from high school. I have an association with her in the school store. And I don't know if this is only because she was like the head yearbook editor in the office. The yearbook office, I think, was like directly across. So maybe she was known to like sneak over there. We'll have to ask Katie. Please text us to confirm Katie, not spelled like Katie in the movie.
Even if you weren't fellow Nanuet High School graduates, did you guys have a school store? And if so, what was your snack choice? And bonus
what else
points,
was in there?
If anyone knows what an Otis Spunkermeyer cookie is, you are one of us. We love you. I feel like they sold like there were like little knickknacks in there.
Like NHS merch or like
I don't think
unrelated
it was merch.
To the high school.
I think it was unrelated. I need Lisa. We need
also, okay, another detail about the school store. I think that the concept for it was that like students ran it as like practice for, I don't know, being a convenience store employee or like maybe like learning to count money or something.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a paid situation. I don't I don't know. It's a complete I just have this image in my head of like going into like this like fluorescent lit room that like seemed like it was in a closet. I'm telling you, I think that they got rid of it like when I went to high school, but I do remember before soccer practice, I used to kind of
Oh, because
I used to
you played
yeah.
high school soccer when you were in eighth
Yeah,
grade.
so
So
I
that's
used
probably
to
where you got a
I was
peek
like,
into
wow,
that
this is a
world.
whole new world. All we have is our, drumstick ice cream machine. This is amazing.
Oh, the drumsticks.
Oof.
I don't like those, but you're now
Yeah,
giving
but
me
like,
ideas.
okay, so Kevin Napor, oh, he's a mixed bag because he's like the type of person that's like, I'm cool and I'm like, want to impress like my mathletes. And I could see him being like, I need a healthy meal before I have my mathletes competition. He's like, I need brain power. So I could honestly see him doing like a burger, like a cheeseburger, but he's not really like a toppings guy. Like he's good with just like American cheese, thick patty. If you were having cheeseburgers in high school, I'm sure they didn't have good buns, but I could see him like wanting a seeded bun. He's like, this is going to give me some energy. And I feel like he loves a chocolate bar. That's his treat, maybe from the school store, just like a Hershey's chocolate bar. And I think he's a like a water or like a seltzer drinker. He's not like big on soda. And again, he's trying to have more of like a balanced situation before his big competition. And I don't think he does French fries either. I think I could see him being like writing on the bottom of his business card, like, eat more protein, like it's good for your brain or something. And like he's trying to bulk up.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like I could see him being like, I eat like a lot of burgers and like chicken and like, rice, and then I go to the gym after. And then I go to mathletes competitions. Does this check out?
This checks out.
This is no shade because I like this is speaking from someone who needs to lift weights but doesn't. I salute people who are able to just straight up eat grilled chicken and like rice and then go to the gym for protein. Like I wouldn't last a day. I need your ways on how you do it. I need your seasoning tips.
Oh, I don't just eat chicken and rice, but I sneak some
Um,
baguettes in there.
there you go. All right, what are the parents?
Yeah.
This is a special meeting.
Okay, so it's Mr. What is Katie's last name?
Heron.
Heron, like the bird. Okay, so Mr. Heron.
I think it's Heron. I don't know.
Heron on IMDb, he's just listed as Katie's dad.
All right, let's call him Katie's dad then.
Katie's dad. All right, so Katie's dad, I think, is getting whatever like the hot lunch is on that day. And I think on that day when he's there, it's like the grossest thing possible, like a Salisbury steak, like a cooked beef dish where like the beef is like gray and
Ugh.
like covered in a gelatinous gravy with some kind of like unidentified like onions that have been like cooked down so much, not in a good way that they're like caramelized, but just like instead of like what is supposed to happen with an onion, like the opposite happens. Like there's like zero flavor left in it. And then as like a side, some corn, carrot, pea medley.
I know exactly the medley that you're referencing.
Yes, that would go.
There was also always like a lone green bean in there. Like the really small one. There's always like it just somehow got in there and it was very confusing.
And it's gonna go in that like the small compartment on the styrofoam lunch tray.
Yeah.
Not the plastic tray, but like what goes on top of the tray. And I think that melange is both overcooked and like swimming in like an oily butter.
Ugh.
And when then he's gonna go and pick his little milk carton. I think he's gonna take the chocolate milk.
Definitely a chocolate milk guy.
Chocolate milk
He's
in
like,
the little carton. And
he's a simple man.
I think that what's gonna end up happening is he's gonna get to his seat, he's gonna take like a sip and realize that it's like done because those cartons are so tiny.
Yes.
But then feeling awkward about like he doesn't know how to go back and like ask for more because the price is all wrapped. It's like, like $1.50 for like everything that was on his tray. I do think that he also did like an add-on. You could kind of like buy like a bag of chips or like an ice cream. He seems like more of an ice cream person to me. I think that he's going to get the little, also miniature, like the little cup of ice cream that's half vanilla and half chocolate. And the container for it kind of has these like circular ridges. And you have to eat it with that the
little
the sticks. It wasn't designed in a way that you could really scoop. It would just it was very flat. And you would sometimes get like, think you were going to get a splinter on your tongue.
It did happen. And yeah, and there was never enough. I never really went off after that. And I actually feel like they didn't really always have that in the ice cream machine. I think that was just like a side inclusion. Like they always like had it in the back somewhere in the cafeteria. In like the freezer. That is the perfect description of what Katie's dad would eat. I could see him and Mr. Duval like respecting each other. And like Mr. Duval like gives him, some of his Otis Spunkermeyer cookie. He's like,
oh, and he's like, where did you get that?
He's like,
I didn't see those.
To the school store. He's like, just around this corridor over here. What is Regina's mom?
Maybe this is too on the nose, but I feel like she's just gonna try to order what she thinks that her daughter would order. So I think that she's gonna get a salad with dressing on the side and a Diet Coke, but then also like a thing of cheese fries. And did they have any kind of like on their lunch table that you remember?
I don't think so. I remember like very distinctly like a banana, the peanut butter and jelly. I'm surprised you didn't say peanut butter and jelly for things you
bathroom
wanted.
stall.
Yeah,
peanut butter and jelly.
It really did make me want to have a carton of milk. And I know that whole milk is making a comeback, which I'm very excited about.
Malls and whole milk.
Malls and whole milk are in. Oat milk, nut milks, all out. I never got onto the trend. I've been a whole milk girl through it all. I'm very excited about this. I would also like to challenge you to say that I think that she would bring in like a little nip of vodka and like pour it in her Coke.
I like this. Okay.
What do you think? Do you think she would like try and get Kevin Napor to have some?
Probably.
She's like, you're drinking water. They won't even know. Just pour it in. It's in your seltzer? Perfectly. Perfect. You've never had a vodka seltzer. You'll be more confident before you go to your mathletes competition.
Yes. I could also see her just trying to like be really subtle about it, but also like just trying to pour it in the mouth of the can and it getting everywhere.
Yes. So good.
But I definitely think vodka is that's her go-to.
Yep. I agree.
I feel like she needs a dessert. How about like one of those? Now, I don't think that they sold these in our school cafeteria that I remember, but I do have a memory of having these a lot growing up and them being like the healthy options. You remember those froze fruit bars?
No, not really.
Oh, maybe this was like when I was really little.
Froze fruit.
It's essentially just like a fruit.
Okay.
A fruit-based ice
It's
pop.
like a quote-unquote healthy.
Healthy.
Wait,
it probably
no, I
was
do
not
think
healthy.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know why the flavor I remember the most was like a lime.
Yeah. But wasn't it like it was grape, lime, and then like a cherry, right?
Though I mean those were like the popsicles. But froze fruit was like a health food purchase.
Oh, wait, are you talking about like they had lime, coconut,
yes,
and strawberry?
Yes.
I love those Those are delicious.
I'm looking it up right
when
now.
I was thinking of, because it's a very distinct like wrapper that I'm thinking of, and I never like put two and two together that they're called frozen fruit. I love that it was healthy.
Yeah, definitely was not. I just Googled like 90s ice pops and so many other varieties popped up that I forgot about. Like the ones that were like Disney characters, like they molded to be Disney character
Yes.
shape. Those were amazing. And then like the Minute Maid ones that were kind of in these like triangular, almost like a cone shape but flat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember having those, but they look familiar.
I really miss like Martinelli's little
Italian ice?
Italian ices. Those are great. All right, we want to know what your favorite 90s ice cream was, either from your high school cafeteria or
The
your
ice cream
ice
man.
cream truck in the spirit of summer.
Definitely Mrs. George is going with an ice pop, and she'll probably get sexual about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna keep going with our this or that segment. It's been so much fun. Okay, Michelle, would you rather be known in the burn book for making out with a hot dog or having a wide set vagina?
Oh, probably making out with a hot dog.
Okay, it's Halloween. Are you dressing up as a bunny, a mouse, or a cat?
Oh, definitely a cat.
Would you rather get thrown up on at a party or participate in a mathletes competition?
I think maybe get thrown up on
Same.
because it would be over fast and then hopefully you can change. But math is not my subject. And I feel like it's almost like one of those like nightmares that you have where you be in a situation where like you know none of the answers and
Yeah.
you're there for like hours.
I need to wear those ugly jackets.
Yeah.
I'm out. Okay, you just got broken up with. Would you rather go to Taco Bell or have a box of Dunkin' Donuts?
In high school, I probably would have said Taco Bell. Taco Bell was a big deal in our family.
It was.
But
We
today I
frequented
would
Taco
say donuts, box donuts.
And also, you don't really have Dunkin' in Florida, right?
I have a Dunkin' within walking distance of my house.
Wow. This is brand new information you've been holding out on me. It's amazing.
It's hidden like the school store.
Oh, okay. It's a speakeasy Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
Okay. If you were to get kicked out of sitting at the plastics table, would you be because you were wearing sweatpants on a Friday or because you were wearing a disgusting vest?
Disgusting vest.
Easily. I think mine would be for sweatpants.
Would you rather sit with the plastics or sit alone?
Alone. But maybe in okay, if it was high school, probably the plastics. But today, definitely alone. Fuck those girls.
I feel the same. Okay. Would you rather have to go back and take a single, like 45-minute sex ed health class or sit through one of those like boring 2-hour school assemblies on the bleachers?
Probably the 2-hour assembly. Because sex education, it's like, in a movie it's funny, but it's not funny when you had to sit through it. And like, we didn't even get to sit in the gym. We had like sit in those, for some reason, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I remember specifically health class in high school, like the desks were really old. I think it was like the reject desks, and it was in like the basement.
Yep.
It was underneath the gym.
It was I would never know how to get there.
It was like a coat room. It wasn't even a classroom. It was so weird. I felt like we were prisoners down there, and they were talking about chlamydia, literally talking about chlamydia for 2 hours.
I'm also like uncomfortable with an old guy teacher teaching us sex ed.
Yeah. No, I'm like, I want like a hip gynecologist coming in and teaching
Yes, they
me.
should have guest speakers.
Yes.
If
100%. They should have fertility women who like work in hospitals who can explain these things to us, because we need a rehaul in our sexual education system.
Yes.
I'm not even going to get into it, but like, it was the same thing in middle school. The people who were teaching health should not have been teaching health, is all I'm saying.
They needed to take health classes.
Yes.
Okay. Would you rather work at the Body Shop or at PJ Calamities?
I think PJ Calamities, because I feel like you probably meet some interesting characters. That's also another great line where she says, like, no, I'm just here with my boyfriend.
Would you rather go to a Halloween party dressed like Katie with the concept of like, you're just different than everyone else?
Yeah.
Or would you rather go to a high school class dressed like Janice?
I think probably Janice, because it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's like one school day. And like you would blend in to like, people would be like, oh, what's Laura wearing today? She looks crazy. But like, when you go to like a party and there's like photos and people are gonna like look back and they're gonna remember, they're like, remember when Laura showed up in that ugly ass costume? You're more like remembered to be that way. So
you put some good thought behind that answer. But we have to shout out our sister Allison, who did this with the knowledge of she's in college. I think this was her freshman year, knowing that people go to parties as like a sexy fill in the blank.
Oh,
and she and her roommate went as Sunny
Sunny
and
and
Cher, and Allison was Sunny. So she wore this like mustache and a 70s guy's outfit, and she looked amazing.
She really did look like him.
She did.
It
And
was
her
amazing.
roommate was really tall, so
Yeah.
it worked. And Allison's really short, so
It really checked out.
it really worked. And last one, would you rather eat a peanut butter and jelly in a bathroom stall or eat the gross weight gain bars for every meal for a week? Both you have to do for a week. PBJ in a stall, 5 school days, or the weight gain bars.
Definitely the Caltine bars. Because, and actually, I'm going to give a little bit more thought into this. If it was the North Shore High School bathroom stalls, I probably would eat there. But thinking about the bathroom stalls, specifically in our middle school, I have not actually thought about it in years, but there were no lights. It was very dark. The stalls were like a black color, and it always smelled absolutely horrific in there. I remember like not wanting to touch anything and I always remember the bathrooms being very cold. They were very
very cold.
Very chilly in there. So like when you would pee, you would be like, oh, I gotta like hurry up because I'm cold. It's not an enjoyable experience. And I have to say, I'm happy that I didn't really get my period until high school, because I can't imagine being a middle school girl going into those bathrooms. They probably didn't even have the box, the little tin box. It's just not a good experience. So I'm all out if it's a Nanuet High School or Nanuet Middle School. MacArthur bar.
A MacArthur bar.
Yes. I really hope they updated their bathrooms, is all I can say.
And apologies to the listeners if we're inadvertently giving you like high school bad dreams.
This is how we all come together, right?
Yes.
We remember our bad bathroom experiences.
All right. What's next?
I actually don't know what we're recording next week. Would you like to share? Keeper of the schedule for the week?
Sure.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to be talking about the 2004, also in 2004, and I believe released in the same month as Mean Girls film, 13 Going on 30.
Oh, this one has been a long time coming. Get ready. Making our way to New York City. It's going to be a great one.
Oh, I have to start working on my costume.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I think I might be able to keep half of this hairstyle for that.
Yeah. You're definitely going to have to expense this one.
Yes. Thanks for joining us at the table. We can't wait to hear your thoughts about this episode. Text us or leave us a voicemail at 904-513-1383. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review or hit that button to give us 5 stars. If you've been enjoying watching on YouTube, click the link below to subscribe to our channel and give one of our past episodes a thumbs up. And lastly, tell a friend by sharing your favorite episode with them. Thanks so much for supporting us.